It is time to think about how we're submitting these starting lineups. I mean, it is crazy to think about how far we've come, and I will ask you, be a little bit patient with me, right? I mean, I'm rusty doing this, but I will be excited to get you our initial top 24 running back rankings for week one. Starting off tier one, CMC Austin Eckler, nothing really to say, right? You're starting these guys no matter what. You took them in round one for a reason. Now, I will say matchup's going to be a little bit tough for the 49ers going to play Pittsburgh. It's at Pittsburgh. 49ers are only 2.5-point favorites. You're going to imagine that in the majority of games, you actually have the 49ers favored by 4, 5, even 6 points. Now, with Austin Eckler going to play the Miami Dolphins, this is going to be at SoFi, but it's interesting in that you do have a healthy Mike Williams. You have a healthy Keenan Allen. As we've talked about all offseason now, the health of those both wide receivers, as well as the addition of Quentin Johnston, means that Eckler may not average 9, 10 targets a game. That may come back down to a lot closer to 6 we've seen in years past. Will be interesting to watch that play out. Now, our next guy will be Saquon Barkley playing the Dallas Cowboys. I have drafted a lot of Saquon. Will be fun because this is the Sunday night game. You actually have the Dallas Cowboys as 3.5-point favorites, even though this game is being played in New York. But keep in mind, obviously, Barkley's a running back that is going to be involved as a pass catcher, so he can still score a lot of points in a game that he's not favored in. Now, Nick Chubb will be our next player. Should be a tough game against the Cincinnati Bengals. We know the Bengals have a great offense. They have pretty good defense as well. But with Chubb, what I'm going to be most looking forward to is seeing his role as a pass catcher with no Kareem Hunt. Now, Derrick Henry will be our next guy. Tough defense going up against New Orleans. But with it being said, I mean, you just know that he is getting the guaranteed workload. You're not worried about Tajay Spears coming out here week one and Tajay Spears all of a sudden being the receiving down back. Now, Derrick Henry is a locked and loaded 20 touches in this game, so you have to start him. Now, Tony Pollard, I mean, probably, I want to say, the most interesting running back inside the top 10 of these rankings to look at the usage for. We're going to operate under the assumption that Pollard should see pretty much every single look in the red zone because, as crazy as it sounds, Pollard's the biggest back on this team now, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to be giving Deuce Vaughn the looks inside the 5-yard line. You have Pollard going up against the Giants. As we already mentioned, the Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Now, Jacobs against the Denver Broncos at 7. I mean, y'all know, love Josh Jacobs. Now, these offenses are most likely going to be very bad. If you're looking at how low scoring this game's supposed to be, I mean, the over-under right now in the majority of books have this game currently sitting at 44 points. I mean, you have Jimmy Garoppolo, you have Russell Wilson without any of his wide receivers. So it's probably going to be a gross contest overall, but the Raiders should be able to run the ball. And our last guy in this tier will be Bijan Robinson. Now, I understand I am being very hesitant with this ranking of Bijan here. And y'all know in my 2023 fantasy football rankings, I have him at 2. I have him straight up ahead of Austin Eckler. But with that being said, ultimately, this will be his first NFL game. And on top of this, going up against the Carolina Panthers should be a pretty low scoring game as well. The over-under is only at 40 points. I mean, the only other game that's supposed to be 40 points or fewer is going to be the Arizona Cardinals and the Washington Commanders. So with how low scoring of a contest this is going to be, plus the fact that he's a rookie and we can't be guaranteed exactly what we should see, I'm going to be a little bit hesitant in ranking Bijan Robinson as that top 3 option right away. Now, going over to our next guy, we will be looking at Travis Etienne. Etienne must start back. I mean, maybe you're a little worried about the Tank Bigsby role, but if you think about it, right, Bigsby the rookie, you would assume that Bigsby increases his role as the season goes on. Travis Etienne already familiar with this coaching staff, already familiar with this offense. We saw the usage at the end of the year. I mean, hell, we saw them release James Robinson last offseason to fully unleash Travis Etienne. Going up against Indianapolis should be a game where the Jacksonville Jaguars easily win. I think they should be able to go through and run the ball over and over and over again. Now, the primary question that you have is, what do we see with the receivers? What does Calvin Ridley look like? I mean, right now, the Jags are 5-point favorites, even though they're on the road. Now, our next guy will be Joe Mixon, going to play the Cleveland Browns. With Mixon, it's an elite level offense. You have no Samaje Perine, so it's going to be interesting to see how they go through and implement Mixon on third downs, despite seeing some of his snaps taken away from P. Ryan last year. Still a running back that had like a 15% team target share and one of the best offenses in the NFL. The Bengals are 2.5-point favorites on the road here. Now, one other thing that I want to be taking note of is who will be the running back 2 in Cincinnati, because I don't think it's going to be Joe Mixon seeing 90% of snaps, 90% of touches, right? You're still going to have another running back mixing in. Now, Ramondre Stevenson at 11 is a running back that's very difficult to rank. We assume that you will have a pretty large role right out the gate for Ezekiel Elliott. But my thought process here with this Ramondre Stevenson ranking, going up against a phenomenal defense with the Philadelphia Eagles, is obviously the Eagles should be heavily favored in this game. Right now, they're favored by 4 points. And I'm going to be operating under the assumption that the New England Patriots trail this game the majority of the time. And that may lead to a larger role as a pass catcher for Ramondre Stevenson. At least my initial thought on this situation going into the year is you probably want Ramondre Stevenson in the games where the Patriots are trailing. That way he can get out there and have 8, 9, 10 targets. And you probably want Ezekiel Elliott in those games where the New England Patriots are going to be able to run the ball consistently. Now, our last running back in this tier will be Kenneth Walker. You're going to be super high on Kenneth Walker this week. It's going to be a great matchup going up against the Los Angeles Rams, where the Seahawks are 5-point favorites. They should be able to run the ball consistently. On top of this, with Zach Charbonnet, keep in mind this is a running back that dealt with an injury through training camp, so we can't assume that Zach Charbonnet is fully implemented right away. Maybe he expands his role as the season goes on, but at least out the gate, you would assume that Kenneth Walker is going to be the running back that they look to lean on early and often. He was a running back 1 after the first month of the season last year. Really, the only reason you wouldn't draft him at that price this season is because Charbonnet, but not worried about Charbonnet week 1. Now, for week 1, please make sure y'all are taking advantage of this before Thursday. Y'all know on Underdog Fantasy, we've been drafting all off season. It's not too late to get into a draft right now. It's best ball, no time commitment during the year. So I drafted 700 teams, 150,000 on Underdog last season. But the most important thing for you to look at is going to be the free special pick'em that they have Thursday night. Patrick Mahomes more than less than half a total yard against the Detroit Lions. On top of this, there's a Flock exclusive special only if you use promo code Flock on Underdog. Josh Allen against the Jets on Monday night, more than less than half a total yard. And then also, if you are new to Underdog Fantasy, you're going to be getting an additional special mystery pick'em. I've literally never seen Underdog do 2 special pick'ems the same week. Week 1, they're giving you 3. And also, if you sign up with promo code Flock, you're going to get a dollar for dollar deposit match up to $100. You're going to get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flockfantasy.com where you can check out all my premium content. So please make sure you're taking advantage of that with the link in the comment section and description. But moving down, I'm going to have Alexander Mattison here at 13. Now, with Madison, I think there's still an outside possibility that at some point this season, the Minnesota Vikings make a play for a running back, right? Whether that's discount Kareem Hunt, discount Leonard Fournette, whether that's going through and trading for Jonathan Taylor, it's probably a little less likely. But nonetheless, I mean, as it stands right now going into week 1, Alexander Mattison is in a beautiful situation. You really don't have to worry about any competition here. Plus, it is a phenomenal matchup going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home, where the Vikings are favored by 6 points. Now, full transparency, I think the Vikings are going to throw the hell out of the ball this next year. I'm not going to be surprised if Kirk Cousins leads the NFL in pass attempts, but going up against the Bucs, that's just not something you have to do, right? I mean, we're going to assume that Baker Mayfield has a hard time moving the ball down the field against the Vikings, and they probably just run the ball and play keep away. Now, going over to our next team, we will be looking at Aaron Jones playing the Chicago Bears. Now, there are about 3 things guaranteed on this planet, or at least have been over the past 10 seasons. You've had death, taxes, and the Green Bay Packers taking a dump on the Chicago Bears every single season. Well, that third thing is no longer guaranteed, ladies and gentlemen. You no longer have Aaron Rodgers with the Green Bay Packers. Instead, you have Jordan Love. This game is at Soldier Field as well, so there's a lot up in the air. You don't really know what we should expect from this Green Bay Packers offense. Now, right now, you actually have the Chicago Bears favored by 1 point, so it should be an incredibly close game. And I would say a close game is probably going to favor Aaron Jones versus A.J. Dillon, given the fact that Aaron Jones is going to be the receiving down back. And yes, the Bears defense will be dramatically improved going into this next year, but still hard to say that they're going to be some elite defense this season. Now, our next running back, J.K. Dobbins, 15, has the perfect matchup, right? What you want from J.K. Dobbins and the overall Ravens here is you want them to get out there with a 2-touchdown lead where they're all of a sudden not having to air the ball out. You want them to be able to run the ball over and over and over again. And they're playing the Houston Texans with rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud, who struggled in the preseason. And the Texans obviously should have an improved defense this next year, but still shouldn't be great. And most importantly, the Ravens are favored by 10 points in this game. I mean, you go through and look at every single spread across the entire NFL, and the next largest spread that you're going to have will be 7 points with Washington playing the Arizona Cardinals. This is going to be the biggest blowout of the week. It's going to favor J.K. Dobbins. You want Dobbins to be winning in the game because Dobbins isn't going to provide a ton of value as a pass catcher. Instead, he's going to provide that value actually rushing the football. So beautiful matchup for J.K. Dobbins. But now our next running back that I'll be much more excited about in the long term than I am just this week will be Najee Harris. Najee Harris can have a tough go at things, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, obviously everybody's pumped to see what Jaylen Warren did in the preseason, and everybody's sitting here screaming, oh, Najee's horrible. You got to be worried about Najee Harris this year. In reality, I think Najee Harris is still the easy running back one here in Pittsburgh. But what's not easy is the matchup against the 49ers week 1. Now, this is at Pittsburgh, which is obviously nice to see in the case of Najee Harris. But the 49ers arguably have the best defense in the NFL, if not at minimum a top 5 defense, right? With Najee, this isn't a running back that's just going to go out there and rack up 8, 9, 10 receptions in a single game. Now, I believe we've seen him get up to 17 receptions in a game before, but that's not happening again. So you're not really just getting a ton of value as a pass catcher. You want to see touchdown upside for Najee Harris, and it's going to be hard to come by in this game. Now, going over to our next guy, we are going to have Jahmyr Gibbs going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you are looking at Gibbs, this is a running back that has the dream matchup. You don't want David Montgomery to be in the game when you're down by a touchdown or two. You're going to want your clear receiving down back that should be a top 5 running back in the NFL in terms of his overall receiving down skill set combined with an elite offensive line. And yeah, I think it's the perfect matchup. You're going up against the Chiefs. The Lions should understand they're not winning this game by going out there and running the ball 25 times with David Montgomery, right? I mean, I think we can assume that this is most likely a shootout. Right now, if you look at the over-under, it is 54 points for this game. That is the highest scoring game we have across the entire NFL this week. So if Gibbs is going to be in a shootout, an elite receiving down back, even if he's a rookie and we want to be a little bit hesitant about these rookies in week 1, it's the perfect blow-up spot for Jahmyr Gibbs, right? And then our last running back in this tier is going to be Jamal Williams, with Jamal going up to play the Tennessee Titans as a 3-point favorite. What's interesting is not only do you have the Alvin Kamara suspension, but you have Condre Miller dealing with a hamstring injury as well. So you may be in a spot where Jamal Williams is the only running back viable in New Orleans this week. And if that's the case, you have to go through and you have to start him as a running back 1. I mean, maybe we can say mid-running back 2. It's going to depend if you're in a full PPR format or a non-PPR league. Now, what's very interesting is if you go look at the pick'ems that Underdog Fantasy has right now for week 1, I would assume that they had, say, Jamal Williams sitting out there maybe with 70, 80 rushing yards. I mean, you're really banking on the rushing touchdown as well. But no, I mean, that's not the case in the slightest. Underdog's telling us that Jamal Williams isn't going to have a lot of rushing volume, or at least not in week 1. I don't know if this is a matchup thing. I don't know if there's anything that I'm missing here. Generally, if you're going to be looking at the pick'ems on Underdog, you always want to be going with the fewer than, but they only have Jamal at 47.5 rushing yards. And that may actually be one of the spots I want to take the higher than, assuming you're in a situation where we have no Miller this next week. Now, going over to our next guy, we will be looking at Miles Sanders. Sanders just has a guaranteed role, right? He has the contract. I mean, the team's kind of told us what they're going to do. I'm also expecting that Miles Sanders gets the bump up as a pass catcher as well, departing in offense with the rushing quarterback. Plus, the last time we saw him with his coaching staff back in 2019, Miles Sanders actually did catch the ball very often. I mean, it's a good spot against the Atlanta Falcons where, I mean, the primary thing that you should be worried about for the Carolina Panthers and Miles Sanders in particular is that they're going to get blown out, right? I mean, you're worried if Miles Sanders is having to go play, say, the San Francisco 49ers, and they're just not going to be able to run the ball at all. No, I mean, against Atlanta's right now favored by about 3.5 points, but it still should be a close game overall, and that's what you want. You want Miles Sanders in a competitive contest. Now, Dameon Pierce at 20 is a running back that I'll have much higher than this in our rest of season rankings, but it's just a super tough matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. I think Dameon Pierce most likely expands his role as a pass catcher this next year, but with that being said, he's still not an elite level receiving down back, right? And at the same time, if you're going to be down by multiple touchdowns, if you are 10-point dogs and you're supposed to be the worst or one of the worst offenses of the week, I mean, it's a situation we need to be fading overall. And same thing with James Conner, right? We know James Conner, similar to Dameon Pierce, is going to be a 3-down back. It's going to be a running back that sees pretty much every touch in his backfield. But James Conner also has a very tough matchup going up against Washington. And he is supposed to be playing in the lowest scoring game of the week. Right now, the Arizona Cardinals, Washington Commanders are sitting at 38 for their over-under, according to Las Vegas Sportsbooks. So if I were you, I would do everything that I could to hopefully not start any Arizona Cardinals and very few Washington Commanders. It's just going to be a nasty game overall. Now, Isaiah Pacheco at 22 is a running back that's going to be difficult to rank. Full transparency, I've drafted a lot of Isaiah Pacheco, right? I mean, this is a running back that we are getting as a running back 3 all offseason in underdog drafts, where I was like, okay, yeah, at that price point, based off what the team did this offseason, based on the offense, I'm willing to go through and I'm willing to take that shot. I don't think Pacheco is some like elite level talent by any means, right? This is obviously a team that's not going to run the ball very often. But if the over-under of this game is 54 points and it's supposed to be a shootout overall, I mean, you do want as many pieces as you can get in here. Now, our next guy will be Brian Robinson, 23. With Brian Robinson, he did expand his role as a pass catcher in the preseason, which you really like to see as well. Now, the main question that you're going to have is, what is the split between Robinson and Gibson? I think this game's going to favor Brian Robinson because they are playing the Cardinals. They are 7-point favorites, and the Cardinals are complete buns. Maybe you go ahead and play Antonio Gibson, though, if it's a game where you actually have the Commanders, I mean, as 7-point dogs, right? And then our last running back will be James Cook. With James Cook, difficult spot to rank him in that it's a very tough matchup going up against the Jets. I mean, the Jets, obviously great defense. Plus, we don't know exactly what the split's going to be with the running backs in this backfield. I'll definitely say that we are going to be watching James Cook closely on Monday night. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites currently, and I really do want to see the split out of this backfield because next week, James Cook may be way higher in these rankings. But as I'm watching that game to see James Cook go out there and hopefully have a good performance, make sure you're watching as well and take advantage of the special pick'ems they have on Underdog right now. Like I said, if you use promo code FLOCK, you'll have an exclusive Josh Allen more than less than half a pick'em on Monday night. Plus, there's a site-wide special on Underdog Thursday night against the Lions. You have Patrick Mahomes more than less than half a total yard. And on top of that, if you are new to Underdog Fantasy, you're going to be getting a third special surprise pick'em. Make sure you're taking advantage. Also, promo code FLOCK. I'm going to give you all 3 of those, but also a 100% deposit match up to $200. Our 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flockfantasy.com where you can find all my premium content. But I think that's all I have for you. And again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. And I really hope I get to see you out with the live stream later tonight.